What is going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause volatility in the stock price, and where things might ultimately land. Before I get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi did close at $6.99 on Friday. As anticipated, it was very interesting because it was actually at that $7 mark up until roughly about 5 minutes below that, and then it just obviously tanked to $6.98. Clear sign of manipulation as usual, but will the SEC actually ever do something about it? Nope, never. So this is very, very messed up, but then again, that's kind of what we expect with SoFi. The only thing specific to SoFi that might be coming out or will be coming out is this: SoFi to participate in upcoming investor conference. So that is June the 12th, 2024 at the Mizuho Technology Conference. Chris is going to be talking at 9:55 a.m. So in reality, I think this is generally a good thing for SoFi investors. Gives a little bit more context on what they anticipate for the foreseeable future, or maybe some Easter eggs that might be coming out. But nonetheless, I think that is fairly good stuff to stay tuned for. Data point wise, there's a couple of things to watch for this week. So Monday and Tuesday is going to be quiet, more piggybacking off of the technicals and just the broader market. Wednesday onwards, that is where things get very interesting. So Wednesday you do have CPI, and then later in the day you have the interest rate decision. And so when it comes down to that, obviously I think a lot of us realize that nothing's going to happen this time around. As you can kind of see, a 97.8% likelihood that nothing will happen, 2.2%. So for those of you that are very optimistic, there is a chance, 2.2%. So again, that would equate to a 25 basis point cut. In reality, I think a lot of people are targeting September, because right now September there is a 46.6% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut, 3.8 for a 50 basis point cut, and then a 0.1% for a 75 basis point cut. So in reality, I think this one is where Wall Street anticipates is the, I guess, next big cut. And then just to give you a good overview of while I'm here, November, not really much change. And then December, it's kind of evenly divided. So I think September onwards, that's what the market is really anticipating, but we'll have a little bit more context on Wednesday. So that should really propel the broader market higher, dependent on really what is said. So let me know your thoughts on that. Thursday, you do have PPI as well coming out. And then of course, initial jobless claims as usual. And then Friday is going to be more of a piggybacking off of the previous data. So it is going to be a wild ride, which in my opinion could really help SoFi dependent on what happens on Wednesday. Shorts though, if the data is negative, then you are going to see shorts jump all over SoFi as usual. Friday, though, shorts did return about 379,000 shares. That day, they are actually returning a lot more than that. I think leading up to Power Hour, they were returning about 800,000 shares. So of course, by them increasing, it lowers the amount, and by them increasing, that does add selling pressure. So of course, it's all linked. This is why shorts were the ones that caused all of this volatility right here as usual. So if the data points are negative, then yes, anticipate shorts to really double down once again in SoFi. So it has actually, they've pulled back quite a lot. So I think the peak was roughly around 21%, something like that. It went down to 16.28%. So we're sitting at 17.47. So the trend is kind of indicating that they are re-entering slowly. So once again, just keep that in mind. Utilization 75.78, short score is 73.6. So the higher the number, the higher the likelihood of a squeeze happening. And then cost to borrow average is 0.99%. So as far as options for this week, this is the current open interest. So this is that 44,000 in open interest wall at $7 strike price. So that's what really got shorts / market makers to guarantee that basically SoFi was not going to close at 7 or above. Going into this upcoming week, you do already start to see a wall for the June 14th and June 21st expiries. So right now, for this upcoming week, there is 22,000 at that 7, 17 at that 750, and then 10 at that $8 strike price. So once again, not to be negative, but this is where SoFi might struggle with this $7 mark once again. But in my opinion, it will all come back down onto Wednesday. What will CPI indicate, as well as what are the Feds going to say? So that could really propel the broader market higher, similar to what happened kind of mid-May, some point around there. So if it does get above the $7 mark, then it could easily sit around that 750, but most likely it won't happen straight away, and it will be dependent on Wednesday's data. So just kind of stay tuned for that. And as I always say, the first trading day, usually this does jump up by like 30%. So even though it is 22,000 right now, it could probably be the high 20s probably by the end of Monday. So just anticipate that. SoFi is always battling with that all the time, and I feel like over the last, I don't know, 2.5, 3 months, SoFi has landed at between like $6.95 and $6.99, probably a good like 7 times, 8 times. It's absolutely crazy how just the SEC and everyone else just seems to overlook SoFi. I'm not really sure why. This is where I think Anthony Noto, being the very big voice of SoFi, he could have some influence, similar to, as I brought up in the past, Alex Karp, CEO of Palantir. They had a 4% short interest, and he went on a rant against shorts. And I don't know if it actually did help, but it brought awareness. So in my opinion, I think Anthony should really bring up about this manipulation. Doesn't actually have to do anything crazy, but just to acknowledge that it is happening, that might be a big deterrent. So again, that's something I think could happen or should happen. So let me know your thoughts on that. As far as larger institutions, they're probably going to hold off up until Wednesday, until there's like the green thumb, or I guess rubber stamp that the market is good and that essentially things will start to move higher. So in reality, I think institutions might be just waiting up until that point. You did see a lot of good buying happening after hours on Friday. Very convenient, of course. So this is probably just the larger institutions, market makers, just buying, whereas it should have realistically been. So you did have a couple interesting ones. So 4.17 million, first thing, 1.59 million. So again, this is on the secondary market above $100,000. So as far as support and resistance points with it closing at $6.99, it is trading between this pivot and this R1. So just watch for this 701 for it to flirt with. So that's going to be the next strong resistance / target. And then over and above that, there's going to be that $7 one that's brought on because of the options. But Friday, even Thursday, it did have a lot of good momentum. So actually did have a high of 705 on Friday. So it's actually shown that it wants to go up. And if you just generally look at the chart, Friday can be seen as somewhat of a consolidation day, but generally the trend is starting to form and it is up. So in my opinion, that's kind of a good thing. So as far as vice versa, just watch for $6.88 to hold. So that's going to be the next strong support. And in fact, that is what SoFi did bounce off of on Friday. So kind of just watch all of that. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of this as well. So there was a new analyst rating that did come out. They didn't give a price target, but they did resume their neutral rating, and that was by BTIG. So I just wanted to bring this up as a FYI. Came out on June the 7th. So hopefully sooner rather than later as well, a lot more analysts will start to warm up to the idea of SoFi hitting another home run earnings. Similar to last time, I think they started to give ratings roughly like 2-3 weeks before SoFi's earnings, which was kind of backwards, but it was very positive to see. And so yeah, hopefully a lot more do give ratings. So Mizuho, last one was Dan, who does have a 49% success rating, and they did give a $12 price target. So hopefully a lot more double-digit ratings come out sooner rather than later. But aside from that, looking on the actual chart, so it is lower percentile of the Bollinger Band. So starting on Monday, watch for it again to attempt to transition into the higher percentile. On stochastic, you do see a nice bullish deviation, so white line above the red. As well, it is at roughly around 30, so somewhat oversold still. So if there's a good piece of news that is said during their fireside chat on Tuesday, you could see a rush of value investors getting in. And then on Friday, I don't know why, but retail was selling. So maybe they sold near the tail end, anticipating that SoFi was going to struggle with that $7 mark again. I'm not really sure. So let me know your thoughts if you did sell or if you did buy. What did you do on Friday? So I think all in all, to be cautiously optimistic, I do think that SoFi is going to trade between more so around this R2 to this R3. That is dependent on good data coming from Friday. If not, then most likely it is just going to stay within this range exactly where it is right now. So it is all going to come down to the data. So let me know your thoughts and give a prediction on where you see SoFi going. Do you think it's going to hit maybe the 650s or where it is now, or do you think it's going to officially, this is going to be the first week in a while that it closes $7 and above? What's your thoughts? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. And with all that, appreciate all of you watching.